everyone. This open meeting of the Town of Grafton Select Board is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order from March 12th and consistent with the legislative acts of 2021, Chapter 20, Section 20, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting is meeting via Zoom as posted as the town meeting agenda. Please see the meeting agenda on the town's website for details how to participate remotely. This meeting will feature public comment tonight. For the Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be published for rebroadcast. All participation within this meeting will be visible to others. Finally, if there are any votes taken tonight, will be done via roll call. Please, letting you know that for those who are attending the meeting who would like to speak, please use the raise hand function, and we will coordinate with William to bring you into a panelist for tonight's meeting. But before we get kicked off here, I just want to establish some ground rules. Please don't speak over one another if you can help that. In addition, for the public hearing tonight, we're only going to limit it to a couple of minutes per person. That's it. And for that, I don't have any more ground. Oh, this is not a question and answer session between the select board and the members. This is an opportunity for the public to weigh in on the Grafton-Upton Railroad penalty phase for an EPA filing that was conducted within the past year and a half. The EPA has asked and reached out to the town of Grafton to solicit information from residents, either written or publicly coming in, speaking, recording, and to be submitted to the APA as part of the exhibits for part of their findings and final decision. So before we get kicked off, does any select board member have any questions before we get into the public hearing? Okay, great. I would ask Mr. Often if you would read back, please, the public hearing notice.
Sure. The select board will hold a public hearing to obtain input regarding the Grafton and Upton Railroad facilities and operations. This input will be summarized and provided to the Environmental Protection Agency for the consideration and the pre-filing settlement negotiation with the Grafton Upton Railroad to resolve alleged violations of the Clean Air Act's chemical accident prevention regulations at the company's propane terminal in North Grafton. The public hearing will be held at 7 p.m. on September 9th, 2021, and will take place via Zoom. The Zoom link and access information will be posted on the September 9th meeting agenda. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to may attend Zoom. The public will also accept written comment if it's received by the Select Board office by the close of business on September 7th, 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Ms. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Mead?
Mead, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. All right. Thank you very much. So anybody from the public who wishes to come in and speak, please use the raise hand function via the Zoom app, and we will have William bring you in.
All right, the first person we're going to bring in is, I actually don't have the ability to do that. Evan, could you promote me?
I got it. I got it. Yep. Hello, Jackie. Roseanne, how are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
Good. Could you just state your name before we get into it? Could you just state your name and address for the public record, please?
Yes. My name is Mrs. Jacqueline Brosnahan. Address is 80 North Main Street, North Grafton, Massachusetts.
Okay, thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you. So the location of our home is directly behind the new facility of the Grafton Upton, the terminal that they built to fix their engines and to park some of their engines. So we've sustained a large amount of construction from the railroad for quite a while now. So one of the most recent things that has been happening is they're letting go of the each car way in advance of getting closer to the next car, literally to the point where they let go of it and it rolls however many feet and literally smashes into the next car, causes literally a shock wave that goes through our property into our house. This has been happening for quite a while. I would say at least 3 months now, all during the summer. The other issue is the lack of repair on their cars. They don't seem to be doing much maintenance on their cars. So there's an extremely high level of screeching from the wheels that are turning and whatever other mechanisms that are a part of the railroad car. And that is a continued thing, hasn't stopped. We're fortunate enough in the summer that we have all of the trees and the bamboo and whatever that block the view. But once the fall comes, the lights that they have on their building shine directly into my home all night long. So it's creates a visual disturbance and prevents my household from getting appropriate sleep because of the lights there are extremely bright and they're at the top of the building to illuminate their yard, I'm sure, but it's directly across from my home.
I just want to say, I want to kind of keep this down to 2 minutes. If you can just summarize for me and we can move on. We've got quite a full list of here.
Okay.
I want to make sure.
Okay. So my concern, besides the recent noise level and ground shock waves and lack of maintenance, is that this is truly affecting the value of my home. And I'm sure that it has decreased the value of my home because of that. And they have a responsibility to conduct their business in an appropriate manner since they're so close to a residential area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it. All right. Do we have anyone else up next? If you please use the raised hand function within your Zoom meeting. We have Mr. Turgeon coming in. Good evening, Jeff. Hi, welcome.
Hey, look at that. I know what I'm doing. Partially. I got a fish behind me. I don't do Zoom much, Peter.
All right. Well, Jeff, welcome. If you could just state your name and address, we're trying to keep the comments down to just a couple of minutes, please.
All right. Jeff Turgeon, 17 Nelson Street.
Okay, floor is yours, sir.
Okay, quick couple questions. I know it's not supposed to be question and answers, but I submitted a 4-page letter and you said on Tuesday it had to be signed. I didn't sign it. Is it still part of the record?
Yes, we have received your letter and it is part of the record. Thank you for sending it in advance.
Okay, so I'm going to try to scan over it pretty quickly because I know I only have 2 minutes here. But essentially, I've been working with the state fire marshal, the town of Grafton's fire chief, and the previous town administrator on my concerns with this Grafton Upton Railroad. In short, I find it interesting that the finding that the EPA did have is the one that I brought up at the beginning of the opening of the Grafton Upton Railroad transfer facility, in the sense of my concern that the pumps would not be able to transmit enough water during the winter to successfully shut down the extinguish any fires or flames that might be coming from that facility. And I bring up in my letter in an exhausted sense that the environmental impacts that this Grafton Upton Railroad has that's just a small piece of it. You've heard from another resident about the loud noises. My wife and I were woken up by not only noises, but by smell 2 days ago at 3 a.m. in the morning. This is commonplace as a resident next to this Grafton Upton Railroad, and that is an environmental impact. The other impacts that I want to discuss here is the 80,000 gallon tanks with the 8 tanks that are inside the walls. They're protected. They have certain rules to be able to enter them. We have over 20 tanks outside of those walls not protected. They could leak anywhere they want to. You have them behind your library, your beautiful library, and it's 30,000 gallons of liquid propane with enough force to have a destruction of a 1/4 mile radius. Each one of those tanks. They don't track them. You heard about the maintenance problems. They don't have to. These things are littered all over our town. With the other previous town administrator, I had a request and an approval from the town administrator that every year the local fire chief would inspect the property and make that notice available publicly. Also, that the water here in Grafton, North Grafton, would be checked and made public on an annual basis. In the 5-year evaluation by the state fire marshal was also supposed to be made available. My last conversation with the state fire marshal was that it was going to be conducted last spring. I have not seen the report. I haven't been told about it. I don't know what's going on. And we need to know because, yes, 1 million gallons of liquid propane is sitting up here in North Grafton with the threat of smell, sound, leaking into our groundwater systems and threatening everyone's lives within a mile radius. Vaporization.
If we can wrap this up, Mr. Turgeon, I just want to give everyone the same amount of time tonight.
No problem. I think if you read my letter and make sure that it does go out and make sure that that summary that you're talking about includes my letter and all of this notes, gets out to us publicly too, so that we know what's going on, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, next up we have Carmen. And just promoting Carmen in as a panelist. If anyone else would like to speak at the public hearing tonight too, if you're just participating and joining, please use the raise hand function within the Zoom and I will promote you into the meeting. Thank you. I am having some difficulty promoting Carmen as a panelist right now. If there's anybody else who would like to speak publicly tonight, if you would use the raise hand function. There we go. Carmen, can you hear us? Carmen, if you can hear us, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Carmen, if you can unmute your Zoom meeting on your end.
If you hover your mouse over the meeting, you'll see the mute.
In the meantime, is there anybody else in the attendees list tonight that are in here via Zoom, would like to come in and speak for a few minutes on this matter? Just please use the raise hand function in Zoom, please. We're still having a problem getting Carmen to speak. Is there anybody else in the attendees list that would like to come in, please? Carmen, can you see us? We can't hear you. If you can unmute your microphone, or maybe use your phone and dial in. We can't hear you, sir. Want me to give you the phone number if you want to write this down and call in via your cell phone? The number is 646-876-9923. The passcode is 185218. Again, anyone else in the attendees list, if you would like to come in to the public comment section, please use the raise hand function within the Zoom meeting and we will promote you to a panelist. Thank you. Then just remind anybody, if you have any comments that you would like to make tonight to this board during this public hearing, please use the raise hand function and we'll promote you to a panelist. The more comments, the more participation, the broader, the messages for all interested. And we thank you for making it out tonight. Just readmitting Jeff Turgeon in back here. I think you might have there should be a follow-up question, I'm sure. Jeff, did you have your hand raised?
Hi, Peter, not Jeff, Terry Turgeon.
Terry, hi. Could you give your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, I can. Terry Turgeon, 17 Nelson Street, North Grafton, Mass. Thank you for recognizing me. I have the same active fish behind me that my husband had. I would have been happy to change my background, but didn't have time. Peter, can you just set down some of the rules of the road? This meeting was changed to a Zoom meeting only last night. I saw on the town clerk, it was entered into the record as a change in meeting to a Zoom meeting versus an in-person meeting as of 9/8 at 9:15 a.m. And I'm concerned that there may be North Grafton residents who either aren't savvy at Zoom and or weren't aware of the change in how we were operating tonight. How late can they provide public input? What alternative means do we have a way of encouraging public participation, which is what open meeting law is all about? I have a feeling there are lots of residents around here who have concerns but may not be made aware of either one, that there was a meeting in the first place, two, that it was in person, second, that it switched to a Zoom meeting only last night. Can you fill in the public?
Yeah, Ms. Turgeon, thank you. Was that all you have tonight?
Outside of dittoing everything that my husband already said? Yes.
Okay, I'll address that. I'm just bringing Carmen back in and I'll address that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the question was why the change from in-person to Zoom. The board on Tuesday night, in just an abundance of caution, felt that it would be easier for us to have a remote participation due to just the COVID variant that's going around town. We had a decent amount of discussion on this, on what was best. And we felt that if there was too many people that came into the town hall or didn't have masks and so on and so forth, we just felt that this was probably the easiest, safest way that we can conduct this public hearing due to the anticipated volume of people that we thought we were going to have tonight. Given that we made that decision Tuesday evening to switch from a in-person hybrid and Zoom to a full Zoom. So the Zoom link has always been out there. The how to access the meeting has always been out there. And this was just a decision by the board that it made on Tuesday out of an abundance of caution. As for the question as to when or how residents can submit information, we had publicized that they could have sent a written information by the close of business on September 7th, which we've received. I think one or maybe two that I think may have came in. If residents, this opportunity is for residents who didn't want to give a written word to come in and publicly speak and verbally express their concerns and how the Grafton Upton Railroad has impacted the town or themselves as part of the EPA process. All right, Carmen, can you hear me? Carmen, I think I had you. There you go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Thank you for making it out tonight. Thank you for your patience.
I can't see you, but I can hear you now.
That's fine. If you can just state your full name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name's Carmen Paglione. I live at 8 Waterville Street, North Grafton. I live probably 75 feet away from the crossing on Waterville Street. And I know this is supposed to be, I guess, EPA, but I guess noise is considered a pollution problem. Questions, some of you people have heard from me before about the excessive horn blowing at the crossings of Waterville Street and East Street and on Ray Street. Now, I know the regulation rules 4 times, for each of the roads they pass by, but what's going on in my section of the town and the other houses along the road is that their rail yard isn't big enough to accommodate all the cars that they have. So they roll through the intersection on Waterville Street. They blow the horn 4 times. East Street, they blow the horn 4 times. And sometimes as far as Ray Street, all 3 roads could be blocked. They back up, load more cars, come back through again 4 more times, 4 more times, 4 more times. And sometimes this goes on to the point where it's 40 horn blows. I know you people think I'm crazy, but that's what goes on here. And this goes on quite often, almost every single day. So is their rail yard go from North Grafton to Upton? Occasionally they pull up the train and the guardrails come down and they don't even pass through. Traffic is stopped on green lights. Traffic gets backed up on North Main Street and on Waterville Street, and they don't even come through because they're loading and unloading and hooking up cars. I can only imagine what it sounds like with the hooking up the cars up the road a ways from me that woman was talking about. They stop at the trains. They don't even cross the roads. They're still blowing the horn. Now, I grew up in this neighborhood. I'm 71 years old, and I've lived in this house my entire life. Pratt's Pond is right there. There was wildlife. I fished. I hung around in the gravel pit that they put up a building on. Did the EPA clear that as far as wildlife goes, or did they just arbitrarily just destroy that pit that pit. And without the EPA saying it's okay to do that, I know there was wildlife in that pit. So there's another EPA thing that I'm thinking about. Also, I've always wanted to ask somebody about this. I've done some reading on this, and there's such a thing as a 20-year abandoned railroad. I'd like to know, did they get in under the wire? Because it was very, very close to that railroad being abandoned for 20 years. And if it goes past the 20 years, that railroad becomes defunct. But the noise level is really something. I did talk with Ray Mead and tried to explain to him, and I have talked with Doreen through emails before and tried to explain that when the train runs through a crossing of the street, they blow the horn 4 times. Anybody can deal with that. When they go by Snow Road, it's 4 times. When they go through Grafton Center, it's 4 times. Waterville Street, East Street, it's 40 times. This just can't be right. These people live feet away from this train with these large engines. I'm talking 20 feet, maybe even less. Do they want to work with the people that live in this town, or they just don't care? And I think it's the latter. They just don't care. And I'm having a hard time getting anybody to understand what's going on here. That's about all I got. But
well, thank you very much, Carmen, for coming in. Appreciate your comments. Thanks for your patience in getting into the Zoom tonight. Appreciate everything you did to make that happen. Again, this will go out tomorrow morning to the EPA as part of the public record. We're not going to get into a question and answer session tonight, but I do hear there were some questions there. Maybe I can see if our TA's office can follow up with you on some of those administrative items. But thank you very much for coming in.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Have a great night, sir.
You too.
Anybody else within the attendees list that would like to come in and speak tonight, please use the raise hand function within the Zoom meeting, please. I'm seeing that Jacqueline wants to come back in. I'm going to permit it if it's just a question on just process. Ms. Brosnan? You're on mute.
Yep. Oh, all right. So I did want to just add in the gentleman earlier had mentioned a smell. I did want to mention that is definitely happening. The exhaust from the trains, that is constant. So I did want to add that to my statement. There is continuous exhaust smell that definitely gets into my house, especially when the wind direction is coming toward my house. So I'd like to add that to part of my statement as well.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just as a follow-up here, the other question was, when is the absolute latest that people can submit if there's written correspondence? I was just informed by the TA that we have until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning to submit any additional written correspondence to the TA's office, and you can email them at taoffice@grafton-ma.gov. That's email address again is taoffice@grafton-ma.gov. Anybody else in the attendees list that would like to come in and speak? Please use the raise hand function. We'll keep this public hearing open for just a little while longer. And it looks like we have Dan and Katie Helms coming in. Hi, good evening. Welcome. You're promoted to a panelist here. If you could just unmute yourself and state your full name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Dan Helmus and Kate Helmus, 94 North Main Street, North Grafton. First, thank you very much for the board members for having this meeting. As in most public meetings, they all kind of morph into more than the EPA issues. I'm probably going on morphing into beyond EPA issues. Just, I would reinforce comments made previously about the kind of getting some clarification as to the standing tanks that are not necessarily adjacent to the loading tanks that are sitting on the tracks, 20, 30 tanks at a time. That, not sure if they're loaded or unloaded, if that's, allowable in terms of railroad statutes. And then a couple other, I guess, just questions more than comments. I agree with what everybody else said in terms of the noise and the lack of maintenance on, it's not their cars, obviously, that they're pushing around. So they probably have little or no control over the maintenance on those cars. But it would be interesting to know from the selectmen what type of relationship we have with the railroad in terms of discussing their work practices. It's not unusual for them to be pushing cars around and banging cars around at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. It seems like that somehow, if again, they're kind of Teflon in terms of their need to follow local sound regulations and codes. But it'd be interesting if and helpful if we could go a whole day, let's say on a Sunday, and not have any activity, and then at 1 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, they're banging cars around. It would be helpful if we, as a town, selectmen, I guess, could have a conversation with them to see if they could amend their work practices, not to be pushing things around at 2 o'clock in the morning would be helpful. And I guess that it would be interesting to understand that where our relationship is with the railroad, if we have any, in terms of this. I would give them kudos for building their train shed so that we can sleep in the winter now and not have an engine running and basically shaking our house all night. That was very much appreciated that they did that. But I think it would be nice, understanding what we do. I understand our ability to do much of anything with the railroad. It would be nice to be able to have a conversation with them to see if they would be amendable to changing some of their work practices for people that are adjacent to their tracks that aren't being woke up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, if they could kind of maybe keep it to 11 at night, that type of thing. So I agree with what everybody else said in terms of their comments and the railroad crossings. And I know the selectmen have addressed that in terms of it's the one-way street issue that on East Street. I'm not sure how we go about getting a consensus on that from the town, so we could have somebody vote on that in the town. I just heard that some people don't want it, and it's been dropped. So if that would stop the whistleblowing, making East Street one way, I think it would be appreciated by the people on the street to have a vote, have
Mr.
some
Helmus?
type of mechanism.
Mr. Helms, if I could get you to summarize and finish up, I wanted to make sure I give everyone an equal amount of time here. Is there
That's
any
what I'm
other
done.
comments?
That's all I got to say. Thanks, folks. I really appreciate your time.
Thank
But
you very much for your
ditto,
time.
I just want to say ditto what a lot of people have said about the bright lights and the screeching is just unbelievable. You just have to experience it to know. Very disruptive.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Does anybody else in the attendees list would like to come in and speak? Please use the raise hand function within the Zoom meeting. So I guess with the board's permission, I know Mr. Paglioni has his hand back up, and I know we did that with Ms. Brosnian earlier to add additional input. Is the board okay with allowing Mr. Paglioni back in? Any objections? Okay. All right, Carmen, how are you? Welcome back. You have a few more things you would like to add?
Okay, can you hear me?
Can hear you, sir. Just state your
Okay.
name and address again, just for the
Okay,
record.
it's Carmen Paglioni, 8 Waterville Street, North Grafton. Something I neglected to speak about is the amount of traffic that the train creates during these back and forth hookups. Right now, there's not a whole lot of people using the train station to commute to Boston. And sometimes the traffic goes from the railroad tracks past St. Mary's Church, if you can relate to that, in front of my house. It's almost impossible to get out of my driveway. Probably nothing you can do about that, but I don't think the traffic should be backed up as far as it gets backed up because they want to hook their cars up because their yard isn't big enough. It's a safety problem. I've seen the crossing guards come down with a car on the other side of the crossing guard, on the side where the train is. So they obviously don't pay attention to that before they cross or how that happens. I've seen ambulances stopped while they're hooking up cars. I've seen police cruisers stopped while they're hooking up cars, both ways, coming from North Grafton Center towards Waterville Street and going the other way. When nobody was looking, when we were paying a lot of attention to a propane station, they were building a rail yard. There used to be one track there. There's now 6, which puts them within feet away from those houses on North Main Street. There's really something wrong with this. Thank you. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else in the attendees list? I'm just gonna go by your name here, just to let you know, I do see you in here. Steph, Stanley Borick, Sean Flynn, Michael Melanowski, LAR, Julia Rando, Joanne Duncan, Jennifer Paluzzi, Jeff Turgeon, Jackie Brozan, Gigi, Daniel Helmez, I think Dan and Kate Helmez, and then we have another of Collins here, 508-259-2274, and then 508-208-0020, 401-265-2180. If any of you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. Hi, Stanley. Can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Good evening and welcome. If you could just state your full name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Stanley Borick and residence is 73 Westboro Road. We abut the railroad, not the rail yard, but the rail line right in the back. And I just want to echo what other people have said in regards to the noise issues, especially at night. We have 2 young children and they get nightmares sometimes. It's disruptive, especially now, school. And usually Sunday night is usually a big one for that. Or actually Monday morning, I should say. The other thing, I just want to echo some other things said about the size of the rail yard. Like that's clearly an issue that they're using the line in the back as part of the rail yard for their switching. It's like they're over the capacity for what they originally set out for. It seems that they keep expanding, and blowing out of the seams of the land that they have there. So yeah, I just wanted to again echo those concerns or those issues that the noise. I know the railroad has made some efforts from whenever they first started out. They got some quieter engines and made some changes that have helped. I even went out myself one night with a flashlight up there to one of the engineers to tell them, being like, hey, can you just move a few feet this way further down, not right next to our house, because it just makes a big difference. 10 feet can make a big difference, if it's shaking your house or not. But anyway, so yeah, that's just what I wanted to say.
All right, thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Bork. We appreciate your input. Thank you. Anybody else within the attendees list wish to come in and speak during this public hearing? Please use the raise hand function within the Zoom meeting, and I can admit you in. I think at this time, we'll probably give members just a few more minutes, but does anyone from the board have any comments that they would like to make during this public hearing to be part of the record? Mr. Mead?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. You know, I agree with everybody in all of their concerns, and really we really want to take care of these issues. I guess it's just the process. You get frustrated with the process because it takes so long and people don't seem to respond very well. But I agree with, Carmen and Dan Helms and Katie, and, it's really a pain that the public safety issue that we have in Ray Street, East Street, North Main Street, fire trucks, ambulances, police cruisers. They don't know when those rails are down. And, we just don't want to have a problem. But I spent some time at Carmen's house and listened to those horns and listened to those trains, and it's unbelievably annoying. And whatever we have to do to get that situation straightened out, we need to do. The other issue is the issue of the additional 30 propane cars that are up that sit up there and also sit in the center of town. That was always an issue. The safest part of that entire facility are those large tanks. That's the safest part of that facility. Now, can we control how many propane tanks that they put on that site and on that rail siding? Probably not. But I do agree with Jeff that that is the bigger issue. So I assure you that the board, I know that the members of the board are looking into this and working on this and doing our best to try to get this straightened out and help the residents. And we will continue. And I know I'm speaking for myself, but I know the other members of the board will continue to fight this battle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other board members have anything they would like to add? If there isn't anyone else in the attendees list, if you, again, just a reminder, if you would like to speak at this hearing, please use the raise hand function within the Zoom meeting. I know I might sound like a broken record, but please, we encourage you to come and speak. Spend a few minutes and just tell us how this has impacted you and impacted the town. All right. Well, I'd say before we conclude, there's a couple of points I would like to enter into the record. I too understand the reasoning why they have to blow the horns, and due to the close proximity of those streets in North Grafton and the amount of noise pollution that generates, I do empathize with you. I understand and learned quite a bit about railroads over the past few years and understood that that's a federal law. They have to follow that for federal guidelines, and they have to blast their horns so many times before they cross the street. Given the situation of how that rail yard is configured, it doesn't allow for just one crossing and then it completes. I know we have had meetings in the past with Grafton Upton Railroad on the town. We've actually, as a town and the select board last year, have endorsed and signed on to certain grant opportunities to allow that main line where you see the commuter rail go through, to add a spur line over there. So that way they're not crossing the street and dropping off cars in the middle of the night, like people have said. Will it eliminate it completely? I can't predict that, but I do know that part of the objective was to cut down on the amount of times that the trains would have to cross any of the streets in that area of town. As for the one-way situation, this town had held a meeting a couple years ago that was held down at North Grafton Elementary School. A lot of members in the area who'd come down. We just, based on the feedback and on the video of that, there was an overwhelming majority of people just at that meeting, not in the town, but at that meeting, that wasn't in favor of the traffic reconfiguration for East Street. In addition, we heard from various different public safety departments about losing that ability to go down East Street, and making it one way could impact first responders' access to that area of town. This was their feedback. I guess going forward, we can encourage the Grafton Upton Railroad to push these grants forward at the federal level, and they can get the necessary funding and the federal aid to build the sidings along that main line to eliminate at least the noise pollution or cut down on the amount of cars that are moving at that hour of night, and cut down or minimize or do away with altogether any disruption during that time. That's all I have. I don't know if any other members have anything that they would like to say before we close this public hearing tonight. I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand at this point in time. Okay, I want to thank everybody who came out tonight, who made it to the meeting. We appreciate your understanding just to change the Zoom. We had over at one point 18 attendees in the participants tonight. We heard from about a half a dozen or so residents. I want to thank you all very much for coming out and speaking tonight. For those that have written your correspondence, who've already submitted, thank you very much. And if you do feel that you want to add either additional or your own correspondence, I was assured by the town administrator, Evan, that they will accept those up until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then they have to get that out to the EPA in the morning. But you can email them again if you have written correspondence at taoffice@grafton-ma.gov. Thank you very much. And at this point in time, I can entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we close the public hearing for the Grafton Upton Railroad.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on closing the hearing? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Mead?
Mead, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, aye. All right, declare the public hearing closed. At this point, this concludes the end of our meeting. Thank you very much for all coming out tonight. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Mead?
Mead, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, aye. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out tonight. Have a good evening.